Fishing in Limone. Boats, rules, and the way of life. Last night I was looking at old photos of Limone sul Garda, and instead of the lemon groves or the crowded waterfront cafes, what caught my attention were the fishing boats. Long, narrow wooden boats with curved bows, nothing like the modern motorboats you see on the lake today. And I started wondering, before the tourists, before the Gardesana Road, what was fishing in Limone really like? For centuries, fishing was the main source of income here, along lemon growing. Lake Garda's waters were full of life. Perch, whitefish, pike, and the prize carpione, a rare salmonid found only in this lake. The fishermen of Limone had their own fleet and traditional boats called naét. These boats were long and slim, easy to row and sail, and stable enough to handle Garda's unpredictable winds. They were built locally from larch and oak, and every detail was shaped for one purpose: to catch as much fish as possible while staying light enough to drag up onto the pebble shore. But it wasn't just about going out and throwing nets into the water. Fishing on Lake Garda followed centuries-old regulations, and Limone had its own set of rules. The lake was divided into zones, and each village's fishermen had rights to certain stretches of water. There were specific seasons for each type of fish, and certain nets could only be used at certain times of year. This wasn't just bureaucracy, it was a way to protect the fish stocks long before sustainable fishing became a buzzword. The local cooperative dei pescatori, the fishermen's cooperative, kept order. You couldn't just fish whenever you wanted. You needed to be a member, pay your dues, and respect the catch limits. Violations could mean fines, confiscated nets, or even being banned from fishing entirely. In winter, the fishermen would often repair their boats and nets together, passing down their craft to the next generation. There's a kind of romance to imagining those early mornings. The naét gliding out before sunrise, the lake still and black, nets cast by hand, and the slow return with the day's catch to be sold right on the harbor. Even the fishing itself had a rhythm. At certain times of year, they'd go out at night with lamps to attract fish, a practice called lampara fishing. From the shore, it must have looked like a trail of stars floating across the water. Today, fishing in Limone is mostly symbolic. A few locals still keep the tradition alive, but the big money comes from tourism, not the lake. The old regulations are mostly preserved for heritage, and the naét you see moored in the harbor are often restored for display rather than daily work. But the history is still there, in the old harbor buildings, in the stories passed down, and in the fact that for hundreds of years, Limone's survival depended on what its fishermen could bring home from the deep. If you walk the old port in the early morning, before the tourist boats arrive, you might still see one or two fishermen pushing off, nets piled at their feet, keeping alive a way of life that shaped this village, long before anyone came here for a holiday. Do you know of other places where old traditions still guide daily life? Let me know in the comments, and they might be featured on a future episode. I am Mari, and this is Midnight Question.